Today, I'm doing a deep dive on something that on the surface seems like an open and closed story, but quickly ties together into a much weirder and darker path than that. Now, last night, Yuji Naka, the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, as well as the creator of Balan Wonderworld, was placed under arrest on charges of insider trading. And the most interesting part about this story is something not many are talking about, and that's that this directly connects to Yuji Naka being removed from Balan Wonderworld and us finally having an understanding of where his public hatred of Sonic co-creator Naoto Ohshima comes from. And it is pretty interesting how this happened and how people at other Japanese studios doing similar practices must be totally freaking out right now. So the story begins in late January 2020, and this just became public knowledge yesterday. Square Enix, who Naka was an employee of at the time, internally announced a partnership with a company called Aiming, who was set to make a mobile Dragon Quest game. Now, when I say it was announced internally, what I mean is that the public was not aware of this, and it did not leak anywhere online. This is a huge factor to the story. With how successful Dragon Quest is in Japan, and with how much money these mobile games typically make, this was going to be a surefire hit and launch this small company to the moon. So with that logic, Yuji Naka went and bought approximately 10,000 shares of Aiming, and this equals 2.8 million yen and around $20,000. And this sounds like a lot of money, but Naka was actually barely invested. One of his co-workers at Square, Tetsuki Sasaki, purchased 162,000 shares, equaling over $336,000 at the time. And I'm not saying that to underplay how much Naka bought, but to show that the confidence in this was very high. And that's also only how much was spent. Presumably when the deal got announced and this tiny company got brought to the general public's attention, its stock price soared, making all of its shareholders very rich. And investing with that knowledge is a pretty certain bet, which is why these laws about insider trading exist in the first place. It's like going back in time with a sports encyclopedia and getting rich off of betting. Now, where these two stories start to tie together is that this is likely the real reason he was let go of Square, something Yuji Naka conveniently left out whenever talking about the situation. And in Square's response to this arrest announcement, their representative said that they internally disciplined a while ago, but did not state when this was. They did say that with their help, the legal system now has all the info they needed for that arrest, and that they were working with them. So when you look at the timeline of what went on with Balan, this puts an entirely different perspective to it. This purchase in January 2020 was a year and a couple months before March 2021's release of Balan Wonderworld. If they started the investigation while he was there, then it would match up with the timeline that he was removed as director and forced out towards the end of Balan's development. Something he never gave a clear reason as to why happened, but we do know it would have been around the end of 2020 to very early 2021 when it did happen. Meaning, while sure, it's probably true that he was sick when he was removed, it's also true that this was going on at the same time. And it's very unlikely they removed him for being sick. Then combine that with the fact that in that time frame, he went from being close friends to feeling betrayed by Ohshima and growing a strong hatred of him. Something that actually plays a huge factor into not just Naka's downfall, but actually is a key factor in this arrest. While it's been public knowledge that Yuji Naka's been pretty unpleasant to work with, it all came to a head in January of this year when he tweeted out this photo for Knight's 26th anniversary, and in it was the entire original dev team except for one person who's blacked out. It looks exactly like the League of Sonic Tubers photo from like a week ago, which isn't a beef, it's just blacked out for identity's sake. I didn't black it out, I promise. However, Yuji Naka can't say the same, and the person that he blacked out was Naoto Ohshima, the original designer of Sonic the Hedgehog, someone who many credit is co-creating it with Naka. Now, I've never covered it because it didn't seem like enough to make a whole video on, and Yuji Naka already has a pretty extensive history of beefing with his coworkers and fellow employees, even causing this flaw to be one of the sole reasons for him leaving Sega and Sonic entirely. However, despite all these beefs, Naka and Ohshima's relationship is very different. They've had a long history working together on titles, from the original Sonic games to Nights into Dreams and Sonic Adventure. And with such a long working relationship, it seemed like the band was getting back together in July of 2020 when it was announced that him and Naka would be co-creating Balan Company. and this would serve to make action-adventure games for Square Enix. The entire point of the team was to be Square Enix's attempt at a more successful Sonic team, which before Frontiers, I think the team that made Ryan's Toy Reviews Racing would be able to one-up Sonic team. But what happened between co-creating a company with a longtime friend to removing them from photos with a Sharpie is an honestly sad tale. Ohshima has a very good reputation and is still pretty liked in the industry, as he still works at Arzest, which is a support team and small dev studio that works on a bunch of smaller Nintendo titles and ports. But that's not important. What is why he left Sega in the first place, and there's not much publicly known for his reasons. I've even resorted to reading GameFAQs threads, and they don't know either. But with how respectful the professional culture is in Japan, unless Ohshima loses it and pulls a Naka, this isn't going to be public knowledge anytime soon. However, it is safe to say, when leaving Sega, he was definitely not upgrading. We know he left to form R-Tune, which made what was widely regarded as pretty mediocre games, and he even eventually left that and downsized for a smaller role again, so assumedly, leaving Sega was not something he wanted to do. But hey, maybe he was obsessed with the idea of getting all the money instead of giving it to a higher up company. Something that I see a lot, but I totally disagree with because I'm on YouTube. And Google takes 45% of literally everything. However, at the same time, there's no bigger platform to get your videos out there. So I just kind of gotta suck it up and bend over for them. A strong theory that I do see online is that he left because of Naka. And with everyone from former coworkers to even interviewers and fans all having bad experiences with him, it really shows that something wasn't going on right there. And it took many, many years, but some sort of healing to this friendship must have happened before Balan began with support from Ohshima's team. And regardless of how they came back together, what we know for sure is that they did fall out again. So with the knowledge that Naka was removed from the project because of this inside trading, how did this information of him buying shares for an associate company even get out? Naka knew this was wrong, and this isn't something he would ever talk about or acknowledge on any public level. So that leaves the question, who told on him? Well, that's where I believe Naoto Ohshima comes into play, someone who Naka perceived as betraying him, and that's something he has said before, but he's never said why. If Yuji Naka confided this information with Ohshima, maybe even telling him about it, encouraging him to be a part of it too, as it's reported that Naka did get other coworkers in on it, then it's very possible Ohshima ratted on him, as well as the entire group of coworkers trading, which is seemingly one of the only ways inside trading can get exposed if you're not a huge politician or that kind of public figure where you have to publicly report all your finances. And while I'm saying it's very possible, at the same time, there's very few possibilities, as this is such a common thing that goes on behind closed doors, and for you to get caught with this, someone has to know what's going on. If Yuji Naka were to offer this type of opportunity he found to Ohshima, and Ohshima turned around and told on him, then it would make perfect sense why Naka feels so betrayed by him. But in the end, Naoto Ohshima was still in the morally right. And while it's an opportunity I'm certain many of us would have taken, the risk clearly outweighed the reward, and Yuji Naka and his coworkers who took advantage of the opportunity are going to pay legally and socially. So, can Yuji Naka come back from this? Or is he too far gone for a redemption arc? Even though I'm a raccoon, I clearly have some humanity in me. I mean, look at the eyebrows. And I don't want to just completely hate on Naka, as I know he's a person too, and I would hate to see him have a grim ending because of all this compounding at once. But at the same time, it's really hard to see a road to redemption here. Even with his failing of Balan, which he largely tries not to take responsibility for, something it's not my place to judge whether it's valid or not, but even then, maybe you could bounce back from that. I mean, people have bounced back from equally big flops before. However, with the insider trading, it's going to be almost impossible to get any company to work with you after that, and that's if he gets out of this financially alright. I know he's previously been very well off from just royalties alone, like literally all the dude does is play around with FPV drums, so there's money coming in somewhere. But Japan's legal system is very strict, so it's also very possible he's going to have to spend a little bit of time in jail. He very easily couldn't and would just pay a lot of money, but it's not as easy as our corrupted system that's literally pay to win. And also, who knows how much of that money is from royalties and how much is from these stock gains. It might make me sound like a total but I don't want anything morbidly bad to happen to him, and I like to think that if I was in his position, and this was before Balan, when you have no upcoming projects and the money's waning out, then I can understand his perspective a bit better. Again, I'm not trying to to bring light to the situation, but I do want to say, if he was able to do extensive therapy and deal with the clear personality issues he has, then I want to see a future where Naka can lead a small indie team without the bureaucracy from a huge publisher or even development team owners, so that we can see what his vision truly looks like, and if it's not finished, it doesn't get released, as well as not being able to be removed from it. This way, it's impossible to use the open-ended excuses that, while are probably somewhat based in truth, are almost certainly removing any responsibility for Balan's mess, as well as not including anything about this investigation that's been going on behind the scenes. And at the end of the day, no matter how much he says it, at least some parts of the game's flaws are certainly Naka's fault as the director for the creation of the project. For example, the entire game's concept is a flaw. Wow, who would have thought? Just moving your stick and having one single button that you don't even use that often makes for the most boring and unstimulating gameplay possible, especially on a modern console. Like, this isn't even a mobile game. So while there's a very slim tightrope walk to redemption, there's so many things against him that he has no good standing left with not just the public, but the entire games industry and basically any company. If he's going to release another game, he's got to really prove it with the game itself. And if that fails, I think it's actually over for him in any game form. And seeing how the mobile title he made after Balan looked, I wouldn't hold your breath for this amazing Yuji Naka comeback. So I hope you enjoyed that. A wildly different type of video, but hey, this is a wildly different type of news. And hey, Tails channel ended up reporting on his arrest too, so maybe it's not that out of place. Like if you liked, sub to be my sub, and bell if you think Belle Delphine's kinda quirky. Lots of love and peace. Peace!